are streaming. Hey, good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the Veterans Breakfast Club. I am Todd DiPastino, the Executive Director of the Veterans Breakfast Club. With me is Glenn Flickinger. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Excellent. Another gorgeous day in Pittsburgh. It's going to be like this all winter long.
Yeah, that's right. And tonight we have open conversation, and I really have a list of things here to talk about, but I also want to invite all of you to bring up topics and subjects. I believe we have Chris Parolo. Oh my gosh, Chris is joining us. He warned me that he was going to be joining us from the bowels of the USS Little Rock. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you from the ward room, the officers' dining room of USS Little Rock, CLG-4 in Buffalo, New York. She is a museum ship. She's been here since 1977. I'm participating in a fall work party where we're trying to get her ready for the winter, spending 2 days aboard. It is the first time I've slept on this vessel in 49 years. It's about.
Wow.
So you're sleeping on the vessel
Yes, a wardroom. Yes.
in a
Not
wardroom, not
wardroom. I'm sorry, not the wardroom, stateroom.
oh, in a
Officer
stateroom.
stateroom, yes.
So not I mean, you're an officer's country.
I'm an officer's country. Yeah, when the ship is so unpopulated, well, when nobody's an officer, you can do that.
And I'm going to share my screen so that people can see what your ship, what it looked like in its heyday when you were on it. This is kind
Yes.
of what it looked like. The USS Little Rock, it was a light cruiser.
Yes, it was part of the Cleveland class, of which they built 34 for World War II. And the Little Rock, its keel was laid in 44, but it was not commissioned and set to sea until June of 45. So she missed a lot of that action. She stayed in the Atlantic and the Caribbean. She served for 4 years and then was mothballed along with other vessels here. But then she was resurrected with five other ships of her class to become a missile cruiser, one of the first anti-aircraft missile cruisers, and also fitted out as a flagship. So she served from 1960 until 1976, where she was Sixth Fleet flagship in the Mediterranean, where I served on board. And she was then sent back to Philadelphia Navy Yards and decommissioned, bought by the city of Buffalo, and with special permission from the Canadian government, towed through the St. Lawrence Seaway to Buffalo to become a permanent museum. Now, special permission, there is a treaty going back to the 1800s. There, yeah, that's a good shot of the port side there. It's exactly what she looks like today. I was trying to send a picture like that. But there was a treaty with the United States that you could not bring a warship through the St. Lawrence Seaway without permission of the Canadian government, because you were right there on the border. It was to mitigate any threat. I don't know what threat there was at that time, but with special permission, she was towed to Buffalo, and that's where she is a museum right now. And we were working while tourists were passing us by. Um, I know you have several pictures I sent you, but I'd be willing to, if you will indulge me, to give you a brief tour from right here in the wardroom to the cruise mess, which is a little bit down the hall.
Oh,
I don't know if you want to
absolutely.
do that.
Yeah,
Would that be okay?
let's do
All right.
that. And I want to talk to you about two things, Chris. Number one, what life is like aboard that ship or was like aboard the ship when you were there, and what the maintenance must be. I mean, that thing, it was not built to kind of sit in a harbor.
Right, and that's what I'm noticing. First of all, yeah, that's what I'm noticing. Bear in mind there were 1,200 people on this vessel and with responsibility for the polishing and the cleaning and the
Yeah.
chipping and the painting of this vessel. That's not happening now. There's a maintenance crew here at the park. They're dealing with this vessel. They're dealing with the USS Sullivans, which is moored alongside, and
Right.
USS Croker, which is a submarine, which is moored alongside. So we have three major vessels, three uh, museum vessels sitting right here in the naval park. So they do a great job. They've done a great job with the spaces that they have marked out for tours for the tourists,
Yeah.
visitors, I should say. But other spaces have been left alone because they're you wouldn't want civilians to have access to them. It's too dangerous to go up and down the ladders,
Right.
and it's not necessary to repair those spaces for the story that they want to tell. But
And s-
and I'm noticing that when I look out at the weather decks in that, because the harsh Buffalo winters there, seeing a lot of rust and a little bit of corrosion there. It's nobody's fault except the manpower.
yeah, right. Somebody put in the chat, Rick Erisman put in the chat, the staterooms are more comfortable when the officer is absent.
Yeah. Well, I'm very comfortable right now. There's no officer
That
around.
looks very
But
nice.
just a quick look around here. You can see the furnishings, the beautiful blue seat. Well, these are modern seats here, but there would always be some very nice seating here. Uh, uh, um, I think you can see a little display of the china on the
Yes.
wall back there.
Yes.
Um, Behind me, you can see a window there. Now that window is not there. That's into the officers' lounge. They cut that out so you could see the officers'
Oh,
lounge with the couches and different uh, poker table, etc. One thing I want to show you right off the bat. I'm going to tilt back so you can see this. What's missing up there?
pipes.
How about a ceiling?
Oh, yeah. Well, no.
Right. No
Yeah.
naval vessel will have a ceiling because all conduits, wires, piping, and that must be accessible and inspectable uh, for both battle damage and wear and tear.
Right.
So you will not find a ceiling. Very rare if there's a room with maybe a drop ceiling. That would be a ceremonial room, or something like the admiral's office and things like that. Want you also to notice, you know, there's a nice wooden door there. You see paneling around here. It makes it a little more attractive, a little more homey there.
Yeah.
But notice at the bottom there, there's still a hatch there, and
Yes.
there's your classic knee knocker
Yes.
at the bottom there. Okay,
Yes.
so you still have to remember to always step over those, even though you're coming through that wooden door into the stateroom where that
Okay.
door is closed.
Chad, I was just going to ask you, what is the ceiling called in the Navy? And Chad Riddle says it's called an overhead.
Yes, overhead.
You people, you Navy people. And you know, we're going to be rehashing all this next week for the 250th birthday of the
Right.
United States Navy, which will be next Monday. And we'll be dedicating the program to that. But you're giving us kind of a sneak peek of
Sneak
what we're
peek
going to be
here.
talking. Look at all those cables and
Right.
wires.
Yes, those cables, and the electricians have to know where they're coming from and what they're doing. What I brought you over here to see is that window. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that is to the scullery and the kitchen of the wardroom. All right. The the stewards would receive a tray or plates from the chef, and he would deliver them to the tables. I'm mentioning this for the contrast of what you're going to see in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's like they're being served in a restaurant there. They'll go and get the food, and they'll bring it on these nice plates.
Oh, the nice plates.
Yeah,
And
the china
may
plates.
I ask you, Chris, a
Yes.
stateroom is the officer's mess?
No, this is a wardroom, which is
Oh,
the
wardroom.
officer's mess. A
Okay.
stateroom is their apartment or
Oh, got it. Got it.
their
Okay.
bunk and their office and things of that nature. I want to show you the lounge.
That's a very spacious wardroom.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it is. It is for the number of people that were on board here, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure everybody ate at the same time. That's a look into the officers' lounge.
Nice.
That door is locked, so I can't get in there. And again, though, no ceiling, cables are bare. Everything's got to be accessible. Okay. Now I'm going to walk you down the corridor here. We're going out now into a passageway. The yellow line, if you can see that line, that's for the tourists.
Yep. Okay.
I'll make sure I can see what you're seeing here.
We can see it. We see it well.
Very good. Hey, hi, Bill. Um, Walking you through. You need to get past me? Okay. This is one of our old salts, Bill.
Hey, old
Hello.
salt Bill.
Walking down this passageway. This is a typical hatch. I can't remember the weight of this hatch there, but this one is open. There's doing work down there, so there's nothing to see down there. So we're walking down the corridor. The color scheme.
Yes, I was just going to ask about the color scheme, that kind of puke green.
Yes, there is a name for it. I learned it today and forgot it already. Anyway, the ship has displays of Navy culture and Navy niches of the Navy. This one is dedicated to the divers, of which Bill was one, actually. This is a typical hatch.
Look at that.
I want you to see this letter. Can you see the letter Z?
Yes.
I'm going to explain that a little later. Okay. Walk you through this. Here's our coffin racks. Can you see the coffin racks?
I can see the coffin racks. Yes. They're not literally for coffins, correct? They're for sleeping. Oh, he froze. Chris froze. Oh, right. Chris, we're gonna have to get back to you. Maybe you could reconnect. Maybe you can't hear us at all. Boy, was that interesting, though. All right. Thank you very much.
It is Buffalo. He could freeze at any moment up there.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, Brad, you have a question?
No, I was going to say, and looking at the wardroom, it brings back memories of being on ship. You know, it's a very formal affair for evening meals and other meals. You assemble in the wardroom, and when the captain comes in, you stand at attention. He takes his seat, you take your seat, and he gives permission when to start eating. And if you wanted seconds, you must ask the captain. It's very formal, something that a lot of people aren't used to when they first go aboard a Navy ship. Full of tradition and full of practices that are not common.
And you as a Marine would have been kind of outside that tradition a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, they give leeway to the Marines, of course. You know, we
Yeah.
we learn pretty quickly, but it's fun and it's amusing at times just to see it from a distance. But when you're part of it, you can understand how these little things just reinforce order and discipline aboard a ship, and that the captain is the senior man, and he's got to make the tough decisions. So he is the number one person on that ship. And the practices and the customs kind of reinforce that with things such as eating and dining aboard a naval vessel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything has to be so well ordered on a ship because it's so cramped and there's so much technology and everything has to go right. Okay, Chad.
I don't know how many officers were on the Little Rock. We had at the most 7 or 8. There was not that much formality, Brad, as you might remember. And we didn't have to ask permission for seconds. Our chief steward would ask, "You want more?"
Well, Chad, I mean, I think Chris just said there were over 1,000 sailors on that ship. So
yeah, we had at the most 100.
Okay, so what does 1,000 sailors translates into how many officers? Like 50? 75?
Probably, I can't tell you since I was never on as big a ship as the Little Rock.
Yeah.
We were an overgrown tugboat, you got to remember.
So yes. So the general rule of the Navy is the bigger the ship, the more formal the customs.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's like if you're on a carrier, it's much more. What's the word I'm looking for, Brad?
Formal.
Yeah, formal, I guess. I mean, we were on LST.
Spit and polish.
we still.
That's the word, spit and polish.
Yeah, spit and polish. We have Chris back. Before we get to Chris, I do want to go to Carol Vandenhend. I'm very glad she joined us here. I know, Carol has been on with us before over the past few years because her work, and she's a novelist, her work touches on the military experience, especially with regard to wounded military. Carol, thank you for joining us.
It is such an honor to be here. It's amazing to see that tour of the ship and to hear the stories. I am just, yeah, I feel so honored to be among all of you. So thanks
Isn't
for inviting me back again.
You have produced three. See, I thought the Orchid books were a trilogy, but it's actually, what do you call books
Oh,
where there are
I
four and not three? A trilogy is easy.
quadrilogy, I think. I think there is a name, but I
Well, you're inventing it. Okay, good. And
yeah,
because you
isn't that what
have,
we do?
this is the fourth in this series, Dear Orchid. Could you tell us about it?
Dear Orchid is different than the first three that we've discussed in the past. So, Orchid Blooming, Goodbye Orchid, and Always Orchid are fiction inspired by wounded veterans. And oh, by the way, yesterday was American Veterans Disabled for Life Day.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, so I posted about that. But the new one, Dear Orchid, is different because it's true stories, it's nonfiction, and it's written in an epistolary or letter format to people, moments, and times that have really shaped me as a person. But what I find from readers is that although the stories are very personal to me, that others find that the themes are universal, the emotions are universal, and people can really relate to them. In fact, the opening story is to Sergeant Brian Anderson, a Purple Heart decorated veteran who, when in his last tour in Iraq, had lost both his legs and his left hand to an IED or improvised explosive device. And he has helped me through my entire Goodbye Orchid trilogy because my main character suffers an accident, a disabling accident that's similar to what wounded veterans would go through.
Mhm.
But this one, Dear Orchid, more than even the other three we've discussed, is so relevant here for this group. There are three essays in here, each to a different Purple Heart decorated veteran. One to Navy Corpsman Doc Jacobs. We were just talking about the Navy.
Oh, sure. He's been to our breakfast, Doc Jacobs. He's great, great guy.
He's great, and he has adored the Goodbye Orchid series. He has blurbed all of them. He has supported all of them. There's an essay about Doc Jacobs in here, and there's a photo of myself and Doc
Oh, how
together
great.
in the book
Yeah.
in full color. And you might know that he's now representing the U.S. bobsled team for the Paralympics.
Oh, I didn't know
That
that.
is his latest. He's been, yes. So he continues to give back in all types of ways. There's an essay about him, Brian Anderson, and also Noah Galloway. Noah has also loved my Goodbye Orchid series and has endorsed it. And so there's an essay about him.
Carol, you say it's written in epistolatory, we'll just say letter form,
Okay.
um, in a letter form, and it's you writing letters to them?
Yes. So the opening letter is Dear Sergeant Brian Anderson. And
Okay.
it's about the time that he had said to me, we had met over the phone, but when we met over the phone, I had asked him questions. He had given me the permission to ask him anything as research for my Goodbye Orchid series. And he said, you know what? We should meet in person because I'm going to show you how easy I make it look to be a triple amputee. And so I met him at his home, his adaptive home, but it
Yeah.
wasn't totally adapted. And after meeting him, I was so moved by that experience. I wrote a letter to him, not intending to publish it. It was literally to Brian to tell him how much he had meant to me,
Yeah.
how he had changed my perspective. And I happened to, as I was putting together a collection of true stories, happened to include that letter. And my editor was so touched by that very, kind of authentic connection between the two of us that she put it in the opening chapter of the book, which is a powerful place for a collection of stories. And
Carol,
so, yeah.
I'm just going to ask, did you always know that you were going to write this book? I mean, you wrote the trilogy. Did you always know that you were going to be adding this fourth one, or did you decide to kind of add it on after the experience of writing the first three?
Yeah, in fact, even no, I did not know. And even the
Okay.
trilogy, I did not know it was going to be a trilogy. I thought it was a standalone one novel, but my book club and other people asked for more. And that's how one book, Goodbye Orchid, became three. And then this fourth one took me by surprise as well.
And what inspired you to do it, to add a
Yeah.
fourth one?
I think that I felt like I had more to say.
Hmm.
And this one, because it's true stories,
Hmm.
is totally different than writing a novel, writing fiction. And, I always came at all of my writing with incredible respect for the people who have served our country.
Yeah.
And that respect, I think, comes through in the 40 awards the books have won. But this latest one, the amount of attention to detail and ensuring that everything is 100% right when you're writing about real people, that is a big responsibility and one that I took very seriously.
Right. Don't you? I think that what an interesting exercise it is to write a nonfiction book that's a follow-up or a kind of like you're pulling back the curtain a bit on, the character building that you did in the fiction work. And I'm reminded of like some TV series like Band of Brothers, very famously. You watch this fiction series about World War II, and then you see interviews. You watch a documentary of the real people who were behind the characters. And this book kind of functions that way.
It is. It is the real characters. These are the real Purple Heart decorated veterans who have helped me and have been so inspiring to me and to many people. And in addition, there are other real moments of history in the book. I'm definitely dating myself, but my husband and I were in Europe when the Berlin Wall came down.
Ah,
And so there's a story about the people we met, and particularly there was a teenage girl we met. This was 11 days after she'd been given freedom for the first time in her life.
right,
The reunification of East Berlin and West Berlin,
right.
kind of, which then, of course, became such a big movement in Europe in general. But that was a momentous time.
Well, congratulations on the release of this book. I think Bob von Bargen was on. I think he raised his hand. He had a question, but maybe Bob has disappeared. Oh, no, no, no. Hold on. Bob, did you just make a mistake? Yes, he made a mistake. You're allowed one. That's it. Um, Carol, thank you so much for sharing this information and telling us about your book. I would like to share a link to the book in our emails. And if you want, well, I'll be in touch with you, asking if you might want to run an excerpt or something like that that we could also share, because I think our folks would really be interested in this volume especially.
Yeah, I think this one especially, and it's coming out on November 11th.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so it's not released yet. People could order it for pre-release. I put a link here
Yes.
in the chat.
Yeah, and I specifically chose Veterans Day as the day for it to be released in
Very
honor
good.
of, yeah, the veterans who've inspired my work.
Well, thank you so much, Carol. Thank you for spending the time with us. And if you could read through the chat here, add any other links that you might want, so that people could find out more about the book or pre-order the book.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you so much. I really
All right.
appreciate it. It's so good seeing everyone.
Thank you, Carol.
Take care.
I hear that Chris Parolo is back. So let's see. Let's find Chris. Hold on a second. There you are. Hey, Chris.
Yes, yes, thank you. Sorry, we dropped out for a little bit here, but I took the time to walk into the cruise mess here. You mentioned officers. I believe the ratio was almost 1 to 5. I believe we had about 220 officers aboard.
Whoa, that's a lot
However,
of officers.
bear in mind this was a flagship, so you had
Okay.
staff involved as well, serving the admiral. So they had, they had their function to manage Sixth Fleet and the other functions that the admiral had for the fleet and for Allied forces Southern Europe. So that was, I know it sounds top heavy there, but that
Yeah.
was not unusual for a flagship.
Okay. So for a flagship, that's okay.
Right. But I'm in the cruise mess now, and you can see behind me more paneling. We have booths to sit in. as well as the tables we have here. And there's an array of plaques on the wall, which I don't remember all of them, so I don't know if they were collected since the Little Rock retired or not. But it's a nice cozy space. Seats about 100 and, wait a minute, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20, 30, 40, about 120 people at one time. So that's not a bad rotation in and out.
So how does that work then if you have 1,000 people on the ship?
Well, some people are asleep, some people are watch standing. Hopefully you come down here and you get in and out of here in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's in the evening here where you want to hang out here, play cards or something like that. It still doesn't get crowded because you have tables. You have tables in the in your berthing area there where you can play cards, watch TV, and things like that. So it's not really elbow to elbow like you might imagine. And there's a room across the way here for the first class petty officers. It's their own dining room, so that's E6. They get privileges.
Okay.
The higher rank. See, it's all about we talk about the monarchy and that. It's all about class
Yeah, right.
sometimes in the military here. But what I wanted, the contrast I wanted to show you was where you get your chow.
Okay.
You saw how the nice window there for serving the officers.
Yes.
Well, this is pretty much like a high school cafeteria.
So you just
See
line
the
up.
chow line? You just line up at the other end, and they just hand it out to you. And then you go into that room and relax and pick a booth, find a friend of yours, and you enjoy your meal. So it's mass production, but it has to be that way because of the numbers.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's
yes.
not something that you get upset about here, but
And that
I,
kitchen is called a galley, correct?
right, called a galley. Where you wash the dishes is called the scullery. Um, we had those fiberglass dishes. You've seen them in cafeterias and that, and metal trays. If you didn't have a metal tray, then you had those other kinds of dishes here. But this is the first class lounge, and
The first class lounge. Okay,
it's
that's
right
first
there,
class petty
first
officers.
class
Okay.
mess.
Right.
So a little bit of a
Yeah.
private,
Yeah.
nice area for conversation, kind of like either bragging on your best junior petty officers or the vice versa about their inferiorities or what have you. And there's a chief's mess around here somewhere, but I forget where it is. We're not going to go there anyway. But once again, ceilings are like they are. But at
That's
any rate,
overheads, they're called.
right, overheads, right. I'm
This
going to
is
settle down in one of the booths here. Todd, you got some of those pictures I sent you, especially that.
I do have pictures, but we also have questions and other
Oh,
things.
yes. Yeah,
So
sure.
I have a question, but I want to go to Jim Roberts.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned it was a flagship, so you've got a captain and an admiral. Was there
Yes.
much mixing between the admiral staff and the ship's staff? What about meals? I mean, the captain walks in, does the admiral walk in too? How is that? Since you've got this flag officer there, how did that work in the interactions between the flag officer staff and the ship staff?
Good question.
Luckily, we lived aboard the ship. So we made friends, we played poker, we came and went, but we did not watch stand. We would not stand a quarterdeck watch. We would not be part of a damage control party. We had battle stations here, but we were not that integrated into the crew's function. So I wouldn't say that's a source of friction because when you live on the ship and you work on the ship and you eat on the ship and you're subject to all the rules and regulations of discipline of the ship here, it doesn't become that tense. As opposed to what we call a ship rider, somebody who comes aboard for 2 weeks or what have you, and has some other special purpose, and it's the personality too. If you want to be, if you come aboard and say, I'm fleet staff, God bless you and God help you. You got to get along. So the officers, here's the thing: the captain is the captain of the captain is the captain of a warship. Therefore, he wants to play war. Therefore, he wants to be involved in every exercise. He wants to be out at sea doing what the fleet is doing, chasing Russians, whatever Soviets, whatever we were doing. The admiral, depending on the admiral, would rather be in his offices in Naples, running the fleet from shore, or calling up and saying, "Hey, how about if we go to Cannes, France? I got some diplomacy to do there," and then we get on the board and everybody gets on board and goes. But they all there was never really any friction like that because operational necessity. Um, uh, Things like when we had to go to Lebanon for the evacuation, and that Admiral had to ride the ship wherever the ship went. The Admiral had to go. He had to be aboard. The ship never left without him, no matter where it was going. So if we were going to have an exercise, Admiral's going to sea for 2 weeks. So, but it wasn't that bad. And he has some nice quarters. As a matter of fact, I thought I'd be a show off and broadcast from his desk upstairs, but I decided not to do that. I
Why
thought that was going a
not?
little too far.
Oh,
I want to show you all these things here. He's 2 floors
well,
up.
this is so fascinating to me, Chris. I love this kind of stuff. I know Rick Arisman, I asked Rick to unmute himself if he can. Also, Don Nemchek, two Navy veterans there. They have questions or comments for you. Rick's actually, he put it here in the chat. He said, "Did the Little Rock ever rock and roll? What kept the trays from sliding?" You actually,
I knew I forgot something. On these tables, some of these tables are new because, and they use this, by the way, they use the ship for Boy Scouts and other events like this, but I don't know if you can see the lip.
yes,
You see the lip on there?
yes, I do.
I'm sure this is not the original color. These have been painted over a couple times here. I remember them to be almost stainless steel, but there's a
Yes.
lip there. There's also room for this thing to drain, but there's a lip there which kept things from sliding off the table, but also catching any liquids that might spill as well. So yeah, and most surfaces where you would put down a cup or something, any food stuff like that would have a kind of table like that, so that would happen there. So yeah, it's good. That was a good question. I forgot to mention that. I want to show you that.
And Rick, Sailor Rick, your second part of your question is this. I don't quite understand it. You actually sat in chairs in the mess? That's what you asked.
We didn't have chairs.
You didn't have chairs.
No, we had like seats that were attached to the table.
Oh, got it.
Because the chairs on an LST would go all over the place when we rocked and rolled.
So you really rocked and rolled on
Oh,
a landing
definitely.
ship tank. I mean,
Yeah,
those
being
things,
flat
flat bottomed, you're just,
Yeah.
Right.
ugh.
Would they be in like at a picnic, like at a picnic table, a bench type or something like that?
What was similar to what you have, initially I couldn't see the lips on your tables
Oh.
because that's what we had. Our tables, I think, were metal. Everything was metal.
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. These chairs obviously are new, and of course,
Yeah.
like I said, they have Boy Scouts and other activities here, so they do serve food in this room. But I swear to God, I do not remember the non-secured seats there. Like the booths are secured pretty good.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it now, whether we had benches or whether we had. I'm sure we didn't have those metal stools that are clamped to the thing there. I don't remember those. So
I served on a flagship also, Confed 6 in the Med,
which ship was it?
USS Coronado.
The Coronado. Yes. That's an amphib ship. Very, very, very famous. Everybody knows the Coronado from that era.
Rick,
Very
the
good.
difference, well, what's the difference between serving on a flagship and serving on the Terrebonne Parish, which is the other ship that you served on?
Oh, there was more spick and span.
Yeah, more spick and span.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of-
Okay.
Yeah, I've been polishing brass today, and I'm appalled at how tarnished everything's gotten. But once again, years later, what can you do if it's not? We looked at each other and said, this is something that has to be done almost weekly in order to keep
Yes.
it shiny like that. It's
Yes.
not going
And Chris, it's so true that there were how many people on this ship again? 1,200, 1,100?
1,200, maybe 1,250. Yeah.
1,250. This is a ship for 1,250. This is 1,250 people who are maintaining the ship and keeping
Right.
it up to standard.
Chris, do you still use Brasso?
Yeah, yes, that's what we had today, and somebody was suggesting some new product here, but we didn't know where to go get it here, but we've been using Brasso today. And Todd, do you have a picture of that hammer?
I do. I'm going to get to that picture. Chad.
On our ship, we did have chairs in the wardroom, but I can tell you that you learn very quickly. You need to hold your tray or your plate, whatever you have in front of you, and you always hold your cup.
Oh yeah.
And if you didn't, you were going to be wearing your meal.
Right. In a very rough sea, you're absolutely right. But a rough sea was not, depending, if you're going in the North Atlantic, it's different. But in a rough sea was not that common. At
Well,
least,
on ours it was, Chris, and let's just say to this day, when I'm at a table, I'm holding my cup, whether it be a glass of beer,
wow.
a glass of wine, I still hold it.
You
That's
hold it.
habit.
I could imagine that. Okay, Chris, tell us what this diabolical looking implement
You
is.
know, I got through my entire Navy career until today when I actually held a chipping hammer.
That's a chipping hammer.
This is a chipping hammer. You see the chisel end on one, and you see a pointy end on the other to crack bubbled paint, and the other one to just chip it away. And I asked somebody about that handle, and he says, "Yeah, this this coiled handle actually absorbs the shock. So if you're doing this for 8 hours here, you're not going to ruin your wrist." So that coiled handle serves a purpose, and that's to absorb the shock of hammering on the metal.
I chip paint, but I don't remember that.
You didn't? No, really, you
Implement.
didn't see it?
I don't remember that. No.
No, that's a chipping hammer.
I had to take care of the antennas.
Okay, but I got away. I got to wait 49 years without having touched one of those until today.
Okay, well, how did you get away without touching one of these? I thought like every sailor, at least enlisted sailor, had to spend some time chipping and painting. Is that
Now
not
we go. Now we go back to the original question: Did the crew like you or not? This is one of the things we didn't have to do.
Radiomen never stood watch either.
Radiomen never stood watch.
Quarter deck watch. No, we just stayed in the shack.
Right.
And Chad also said here, I never held a chipping hammer either.
Here you go. Rick, did you do port and starboard watches, 12-12?
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
okay.
yeah, in port, yeah.
Yeah.
8 and 8 at sea.
Chris, what is this thing? And don't just say a light.
No, that's called a battle lantern. This is a battle lantern. It can be hardwired, and it can be also battery operated. This design goes back, I don't know how many years, and it is still in. It looks primitive to you, right? Well, it is still in use in every ship coming off the line still. Now, they may have updated it with an LED light. They have may have made it rechargeable, but they all look like this, and it's hardwired. So if you lose power in the ship or whatever the source is, and the battery operated ones, you've got emergency lighting in all compartments. What is remarkable to me is that it just has not changed since in the last 80 years. It's intrinsically safe. It can't electrically safe. It's waterproof. If it detaches in any way, or you have a portable one, it will float. It's all. I say to people, this is one of those things that if it isn't broke,
Yeah.
don't fix it.
Yeah.
Because this has withstood the test of time, as ancient as it looks.
The perfect mousetrap. Dave McComb is another Navy veteran on here. Dave put I want to see. Dave, there you are. Does this bring back memories for you?
Oh, yes. I just put on the chat room, too, that I visited the Midway out in San Diego. Glenn's been sending back and forth, but the CV-41 Midway was, all-day tour. It was beautiful. It was World War II, but then it also used, I think, in one of the first, Desert Storm. Still, they didn't decommission it until I think they brought it back, but it's been through 3 phases, and it's really something. But yeah, I said the deck apes chipped. I was on the
Yes.
Santa Barbara, and on the OC level up top, like you said, we messed with antennas and stuff, but we didn't chip any paint. That was them. That's why we chose where we were. Plus, on an ammo ship, if it blew up, I thought I was closer to heaven, so I figured I'd get there before everyone.
Did you put non-skid on the ladders?
Excuse me?
Did you ever have to put the non-skid on the ladders on the?
No, we never did that, but we were glad it was there.
Yeah.
I showed people when I was on the Midway how we used to slide down the hand railings. People were scared to go down, but I said, when we were in the Navy, you just put your
You
hands on
just-
the rail, slide all the way down to the next floor and get off because you had to rush. I mean, if they called GQ, you had to get there fast.
I wouldn't try that now.
No.
No, I tried it. I did it for one floor, but that's it. It's at 77. It's a little dangerous.
That's so cool that you visited that ship. And I'm going to show people, Dave, what you looked like when you're in the Navy. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Is everybody ready? And he needs to explain his look. Look at that.
Nice.
I was on shore patrol. You had to have
Nice.
authority. They thought, when I was in Greece, they thought I was without the uniform. They thought I was an Orthodox priest or something like that, But everybody said you couldn't have that in the Navy. I said, hey, when I was in Nam, you could have anything you want as long as you manned your post and fought the war. They didn't care what you looked like.
What year?
That was in 71, 72, I guess.
Okay.
At the end, I told everybody I ended the war. That's why we got sent home.
No, I had a full beard like that as well. Sometimes I look at those pictures and wish I hadn't, but that was the 70s was a little bit different there, and that was Zumwalt's Navy, and he let it happen. Now forget it.
Thank God for the Z-grams.
So that was Admiral Zumwalt's Navy, correct? He came in
70s.
the 70s, early 70s, and instituted all these reforms that liberalized the grooming standards, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the idea was to make the Navy a little bit more livable or like with the times.
Yeah. Petty officers could wear civilian clothes on Liberty.
Yes.
That was
As a matter of fact, they preferred us to do that too, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That was a style back home. They wanted the civilians to identify with their, with the military people. It also is traditional, beards at sea in the 19th century. But one of the reasons now that they're getting a little tough on this now is not only for uniformity and order and discipline, but also how do you wear a CBW mask? How do you wear a gas mask if you've got a beard like that?
Yeah.
How do you seal that mask? How do you wear any protective mask or helmet or things like that without with a full beard like that? It's just not practical. And like firefighters too, you just got to be mission centered and let the vanity or that kind of thing forget about that
Yeah.
kind of
but
stuff.
I grew
Make the
that in the
sacrifice.
Navy. I had a beard in school, and when I got sent overseas, I grew that beard because they make you cut it all off when you first start, and I can say my beard was long, but my head wasn't. The hair on your head was always cut to standards. And if some of you guys have seen me in person, I have a tail because that's about all the only hair I have. I want to show these kids I can do that too.
Navy Secretary Ray Mavis served on this ship in 70 and 372. He was Lieutenant JG. And there's a picture not too far from where my stateroom is of him. And he looked just like that same beard as the picture you just showed.
Everybody.
in an officer's uniform.
In an
And that
officer's
was permitted.
uniform.
Yeah, he's Lieutenant JG wearing a beard just like that. There's a
That's
picture of him and then a picture of him when he was here to christen the LCS 9, Little Rock.
I asked Bob Von Bargen to unmute because he put like a little poem here in the chat, and I'm just wondering the origins of it. Bob, do you care to do a dramatic reading of it?
Well, it's actually an Air Force smartass. Um, as you were pontificating about the admiral and the captain, it made me think of HMS Pinafore and Gilbert and Sullivan, which and he talks about Sir Joseph Porter, KCB. And it goes, when I was a lad, I served a term as an office boy to an attorney's firm. I polished the windows and I cleaned the floors and I polished up the handle in the big front door. I polished up that handle so carefully that now I am the ruler of the Queen's Navy. I grew so rich that I was sent by a pocket borough into Parliament. I always voted in my party's call, and I never thought of thinking for myself at all. I thought so little they rewarded me by making me the ruler of the Queen's Navy.
Wonderful job, Bob. Oh man, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Or did we lose Chris again? That's okay. All right, Chris, well, you come back whenever you can. I do want to let Don Matthews know that I've not forgotten about him, and I want to thank him
He'll
and
hear in
welcome
about 2
him.
minutes.
Okay. All right, Chris, you hold on. I want to go to Don Matthews just because I specifically asked Don to join us tonight. Don, you did not join us the night that we focused on our conversation on the Army Security Agency. You're an Army Security Agency veteran, correct? I can't hear you, Don. Uh-oh. Hold on. Let me see if I can figure this out. Yeah, you were unmuted, but maybe you're
Something on his end.
something on his end. We can't hear you. Oh, darn it. See if you could work on that a little bit, Don, because I wanted Don to come on because he was in the Army Security Agency during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And of course, we are up on the anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis that began October 14th, 1962, when a U-2 spy plane noticed intermediate and medium-range ballistic missiles on the island of Cuba. And the assumption was, and was correct, that those were nuclear tipped. And that led to a dramatic standoff between the USSR and the United States. It's one of the closest times that we've come to World War III. So I wanted Don to talk a little bit about his role in that. Before we go back to the life aboard the USS Little Rock, I thought I would let you know about some programs that we have coming up. Hold on. Let's see here. Oh, I've got all these slides of the Little Rock here. Okay, well, on Thursday, we are not doing Greatest Generation Live, which is what we usually do on Thursdays. Instead, we're doing this program on the Fuji fire of 1979. This is not something I had known about before we received an email from the author of a new book about this fire, Chaz Henry. This is a tragedy that took place in Japan at Camp Fuji, where there were hundreds of Marines. The worst typhoon in history hit Japan, threw 5,000 gallons of gasoline into the barracks and killed 13 Marines, badly wounded another 73. And a couple of the Marines who lived through that are going to be joining us on Thursday night at 7 p.m. to talk about that, the fire. And the author of the Fuji Fire book, Chaz Henry, will also be joining us. So they're going to give us kind of a firsthand history of this forgotten tragedy. And I'm very glad that they brought this to my attention. I think we'll be interested not only in hearing about the tragedy itself, but about, serving as a Marine in Japan in the 1970s. And then we're back a week from tonight I feel badly we're kind of going to be overloading everybody with Navy stories, but you Army and Air Force and Marine Corps and Coast Guard veterans will you'll get your turn. But next week we'll be back to celebrate the 250th birthday of the United States Navy. And we're going to invite Navy veterans to join us. And just what I'd be really interested in hearing is what makes the Navy so different from the other branches? And if you had to sell, say, an 18-year-old kid on joining the Navy rather than one of the other branches, how would you sell it? Chris Parolo came to our breakfast in Beaver County last week, and I posed the question to him at our breakfast. He gave, I think, and Chris is back, he gave, I think, the best, most eloquent, most complete answer to that question. And it was succinct about what makes the Navy really special and distinct and different, and why somebody would want to join the Navy specifically over the other branches. I thought it was a wonderful explanation. Maybe you'll be able to repeat the performance if you're not with us here next week, Chris. I also want to let people know we're having another breakfast. Normally, we don't talk about the in-person breakfast we have because most of our in-person events are here in Western Pennsylvania, and many of you aren't in this area. But we are having one tomorrow in Bethel Park, PA, which is a southern suburb of Pittsburgh. This is where we first started doing events way back in 2008. And this is where we still have a really wonderful space and turnout at Christ United Methodist Church, which is in Bethel Park. I think we have 120 people registered for this event, including 101-year-old Betty Digby, who is a Navy wave in World War II. I'll certainly be asking her why she joined the Navy rather than the Army or another branch, and we'll be interested to hear what she has to say. So those are some events that we have coming up. All right. Anybody else? I just want to let you know I could listen to or engage Chris Parolo all night about the Little Rock and about the Navy. But if some of you want to bring up other subjects, please do go ahead. Oh, here we go. George Brown. This should be good. George, he was in a different Navy. George, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
You mentioned the Cuban Missile Crisis, and of course, there's a lot been published regarding that. And one of the key items that everybody centers on is the supposedly unknown fact that Kennedy and his brother acquiesced on what the negotiations were with Nikita Khrushchev. Specifically, they didn't find out until later that the U.S. agreed to pull a missile base out of Turkey. And as such, if you were playing chess, it would be called a gambit. But if you're playing nuclear weapons, the U.S. essentially did a checkmate on that because, and this is from my submarine background, between 60 and November of 61, the U.S. deployed 5 fleet ballistic missile submarines, each carrying 16 intercontinental ballistic missiles with essentially the same or a little bit more in range than what the Turkey base could actually deliver. The real strategic advantage there was the fact that, hey, guess what? Those nuclear platforms were mobile and pretty much undetectable based on the technology at the time. So, that's never covered when they discussed the Cuban Missile Crisis from a 30-year later perspective. But they had, and within another year, by the end of 62, no, actually by January of 62, they had 5 more fleet ballistic missile submarines launched and at sea. So it's just one of those unknown things, or one of those items that are overlooked about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much for that. History here, little history lesson there. Yeah, what George was talking about is that President Kennedy ran in 1960, arguing that there was a missile gap between the United States and the USSR. There was no, as far as I know, missile gap. I think that's been proven that there was not. I think it was hard to quantify what's a missile and what isn't. Um, but the United States did not have a shortage of, was not behind the USSR with missiles. So when Kennedy came into office, one of the first things he did is install the Jupiter missiles, nuclear tipped missiles in Turkey that would put a nuclear weapon in range of Moscow. This very much upset the Soviets, and the Soviets protested and wanted them to be removed. So these are the missiles that George was referring to, the Jupiter missiles. And it was during the kind of back channel negotiations during the Cuban Missile Crisis that a deal was struck between the United States and the USSR. The problem with the deal, from my perspective, and I guess from most historians would say, is that there was a public arrangement or agreement between the two powers, and then there was a private agreement. So the public agreement was pretty straightforward. The USSR agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba that were threatening to the United States in return for the US pledge not to invade Cuba. Straight up, one for one, that was it. However, in private, the agreement was that the US not only would pledge not to invade Cuba, but would remove Jupiter missiles from Turkey. And the US agreed to do that, which I think they eventually did in April 1963, so 6 months after the Cuban Missile Crisis. But it was not disclosed publicly that this was part of the deal. And my understanding is that even Lyndon Johnson didn't quite know that this was part of the deal. And I think there's a problem there. What George is saying is that, well, those Jupiter missiles were kind of obsolete by 1962, 63, precisely because of the submarine fleet had grown. That's your point, George?
Exactly. You could put a nuclear submarine in international waters off the coast of Norway, and actually have a real nice selection of targets. Maybe not Kiev or some of the places in the Crimea, but if you had boats in the Mediterranean, guess what? You had coverage in far in excess of what was actually in the Turkey location.
Right. So the Jupiter missiles they could be sacrificed because there was plenty of coverage with the nuclear triad, especially with submarines. So that's a very important point there. I think we have Don back. We're going to see if his audio works. But before I do that, I want to welcome Grace. Grace Babuka. I think this is the first time that you're joining us. I'm not quite sure. You put a couple things in the chat, so I thought I would just say hello. How are you?
I'm fine, Todd. Boy, this group is amazing with the detail. The history behind the history is my jaw is dropping, and I'm trying to find the group that I belong to or with. about my dad who went down in a Boeing B-17F Flying Fortress
Yeah.
in 1942, September 12th. And he wound up with I'm trying to look at my notes, bronze stars and oak leaf clusters, and wouldn't talk much about the war at all. Until after he died, I started getting some information and got a phone call from a researcher in Ireland about what he did. So I'm putting together his story as and I'm really excited about the other author that was on the line earlier. I'm putting together his story as a sequel to a story about my mother back, her mother before that in the late 1800s, and my dad's role in her life. And the sequel will be about my dad. So,
What was your father's name?
Joseph John Bobulka.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a well, I gave you the information there, and he
He was
was
a radio operator.
radio operator and machine gunner. And when I used to ask him questions when I was a little girl, I'd say, what did you do in the war, Daddy? And he'd answer me in Morse code. He'd start going da 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 da, and it's like, Dad, what did you do in the war?
That's
And
so
he
funny.
wouldn't, World War II, it was like loose lips sink ships. He wasn't gonna talk about anything. And I started pulling it all together, and I thought, this is a remarkable story about his aircraft going down off the coast of Ireland near Dingle.
Yep.
Yeah, and
So
people,
which
yeah,
one is he here?
the cute one on the bottom, the second from the left.
Oh, this guy without the hat.
Yeah, yes, without the hat. Yeah, that's Joe. That's my dad. Yeah, yeah.
And there were
And
only 7 of them, huh? So were they transporting the B-17?
well, that's one of my questions. Apparently, there were 9 crew and 2 passengers. And my first question is, what is a passenger doing on a bomber thing going to Normandy, right? It's my understanding that they were on a mission heading to Normandy. Please correct me, veterans, because I'm not.
Yeah.
So
No.
it was on their return. He was finally, before my dad died, he said they were in a flying coffin, which was kind of a joke because they weren't, the guys that went were not supposed to ever come back. That they knew it was like a one-way mission. So they were all gung-ho. They were going to go and end the war. And again, I have the information that and the names of the 9 crew, but what in the world, maybe this is one question, if anyone knows, what would a passenger be doing in such a situation?
I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think the date that you put here in the chat is September 12th, 1942, but
Um,
it
uh-huh.
sounds like they ditched to 1944.
Well, I'd have to check.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to
Yeah.
check. I do have that circle though on the document that has foreign aircraft that went down in Ireland, September 12th, 1942.
Okay.
So that,
I found an article on it, so I'll put it in the chat here. Glenn,
okay,
what
yeah.
were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, the facts don't quite add up. September 1942 was very early in the history of the 8th Air Force. The first mission to France was in August 17th of 1942.
Okay.
And Ireland is in the wrong direction. That's flying back towards the States. That's flying.
Right. He was returning.
Right. Well, no. So
Oh,
if they were flying to France, you have to fly to the from west to east. Okay. So
Okay.
facts don't quite add up, not because of you, just because of what you have in front of you, whatever information you have. Uh,
Mhm.
there are typically 10 crewmen on a B-17. This sounds to me, if they did in fact crash in Ireland or the Irish Sea, that it might have been a training mission of some kind, and the passengers were, perhaps people training the rest of the crew or observing the crew for training purposes. If
Okay.
in fact they crashed in Ireland, okay? So, or could have been them transferring a plane from one unit to another. There weren't very many Army Air Force B-17s in England in September of 1942, probably no more than a couple hundred because it was so early in the war.
Yeah. And I do want to get my facts straight and my sources. And the researcher that contacted me had a very detailed amount of information, and I tried to email him back, but did not get an answer for a month. So I'm not sure, you know, I want to make sure that I'm going through the right sources.
Well, it says here, Grace, and we'll get to. I want to get to Don Matthews about the Cuban Missile Crisis in a little bit, but here's a web page on the accident,
Okay.
and you can see that it took place on Monday, May 29th, 1944.
Uh-huh.
County Kerry, Dingle Peninsula. There were
Okay.
no fatalities, and there were 8 people on board.
Okay.
And it has the names they took off from
Yeah.
Thorpe's Abbots. I see Thorpe's Abbots.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing.
On a weather observation
On a
mission.
weather observation mission with the original.
Oh.
Okay.
Why is that amazing?
Weren't that many of them. It wasn't a bomber mission. It wasn't a combat mission. It was altogether something different.
I don't think I've ever heard of a B-17 being on a weather observation mission, but I suppose they did go up there.
Mostly B-24s that did that because they had longer range.
Okay.
Huh.
So this is great. This is exactly the kind of stuff we love, Grace. So thank you so much for sharing some of this with
Wow.
us.
So can you put the link in?
I will. I'll put that link in the chat. And
okay.
Grace, if you email me the information you have, I'd be happy to look at it and tell you what I discerned from looking at the information you have.
Okay, Glenn Flickinger.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Grace, join us again. This is great. We love this stuff. We love this stuff. So let's see. Where is Don Matthews? Is he with us? Oh, there you are, Don. Don, you're still silent. What the heck? Come on, Don. What's going on? Let me see. And I want to, we should have practiced this a little bit ahead of time, Don. Maybe next time I'm going to ask you to come back. Let's see. Maybe we could troubleshoot. Just trying to see if I could find a way to get you to. I think either your microphone isn't connected, or I don't know, because you're able to unmute. That usually means a mic is connected. Maybe the microphone isn't turned on. Never used my speaker before and can. Okay. Can't get it turned on. Okay. Well, let's work on that, Don, because I don't want you to go away. I'd love to have you talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's such an important part of our history. You lived a part of that history. I don't know. I can't imagine what it must have been like to be in the Army Security Agency during that time. Because you were really on the front lines of getting the information and the intelligence. So thank you, Don. I hope you'll join us again. Chris Parolo, should we go back to you?
Yeah, because I think I sent you a picture of a missile.
Did you email me the picture?
Yeah, I think I emailed you a picture of a missile. It was on the loading rail.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the background, deep in the picture there.
Okay, hold on. Let me
And
scroll through.
this dovetails from with what was brought up here.
Okay. Because I have other questions too about the. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, here it is.
Let
Okay, I'm going to share this. This is
the
kind of intimidating. There it is.
these cruisers, that was a missile, just like an old Ford Mustang. They found this somewhere, and they totally refurbished it uh, from I don't know how they scavenged the parts there, and it is authentic in its in the paint job and the other aspects of it. That's about as long as a telephone pole, and that's on a loading rail. This is a Talos missile, and this was the system that the six guided missile cruisers were built around in the 60s. All right. You brought up nukes,
Yeah.
something that's very seldom talked about. We had at least one, maybe two nuclear warheads aboard, and special hold in the munitions locker. Now, why did we have that? It's not a surface. This is an air. This is a ground to air missile. It's like a SAM. Okay. If the fleet is being swarmed, this is the strategy in 1970s now and 80s. If the fleet is being swarmed by land-based Warsaw Pact or Soviet aircraft, by swarm I mean anywhere from 25 to 50 aircraft coming at your fleet to bomb it, just like we did the Japanese carriers, etc. One of these missiles in the right place would knock out every one of those planes. Nuclear tipped, tactical. George Bush, to his credit, George Bush Sr. removed all nuclear weapons from Navy surface vessels in 1992 when he realized when everybody came to the conclusion that the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact was probably not going to execute such an attack. So he said, rather than have to worry about these things and have them out there on surface vessels, we will restrict them, of course, to submarine warfare and ballistic missile submarines and remove them from the surface fleet. But we had two aboard here. One of the reasons we had, I think, about 40 Marines on board, aside from serving the Admiral's needs, they were the security force specifically for those weapons. And they would call the code. I can't remember the code word, but you'd be minding your own business, like 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever, and they would call a code word. It was an alert. And God forbid if you were standing in the way of that security force, because they would trample you like a freight train because they were on a stopwatch. The minute that code was called, that security detail was on its way to the weapons locker, and you better get up against the bulkhead because they're not stopping for any body. And whatever the casualty is, it's justified.
Right.
And we always remembered that. You heard that word, you were up against the bulkhead, wherever they were coming from. Don't even get close to being in their way. But that was one of the things that we dealt with in the 70s.
Boy, is that interesting.
But that was one of the Talos missiles. Do you have a picture of the wheelhouse?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. I think this is the wheelhouse. Let me see here.
That's it. Okay. That's a steering wheel for the ship. That is the ship's steering wheel. To the side there, you see compasses, and to the other side, you see the recorder or whatever, the repeater. Like you see on any other ship where you pull the levers, and down in the engine room, they respond to the same thing you just pulled, full speed ahead, flank speed, etc. And this is where the guy stood and steered the ship. This is um,
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Chris.
Yeah.
You're saying that you pull this lever here,
yeah.
and what happens?
You've never seen that in a movie or something like that? They pull that lever back, and it's repeated down in the engine room. So you pull that back, and the same command is repeated in the engine room, and they know to go to full speed ahead.
Okay, so that pulling that lever doesn't put you in full speed ahead.
No, it's a communications.
Got
It's
it.
a communications device,
Got it.
and
I
the
didn't
engine
know
room
that.
acts accordingly. But I wondered about the platform. You see the platform there?
Yeah.
Well, if you're steering the ship, you don't want to be sliding and slipping on water that's coming in during a storm or for any other reason. So water on the tile floor. Here you're elevated about an inch or two off the deck. So you are not on a wooden platform. So you're not going to be slipping and sliding and dragging that wheel left or right, or leaving that wheel for any reason there. So and there's a compass in front of you as well. Now, what you're looking at is a bulkhead. They're looking through portholes. This
Mm-hmm.
is the pilot. This is the wheelhouse. In front of you is the bridge, and that's where the captain and other people would be standing, looking out of windows. Okay, if you come into a battle situation, those portholes would be sealed from the other side by armored porthole covers,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't figured out how they were navigating without being able to see, but you would abandon the bridge and take cover inside the wheelhouse, because the whole idea is if a shell hits the bridge, you want to aim it where your captain is and things like that. That bulkhead, that armored bulkhead, would protect you.
Boy,
And I think there's another picture of the bridge, and you can see the captain's chair. It's a little darker.
I'm gonna find it. And this thing is like a tube that you tuck into.
Yeah, you would shout into that tube there, and believe it or not, through the brass that would carry to wherever it's going. I think the engine room as well.
Boy, what a
Oh, and your arrow moved right over to what was a plotting board. You had a plot. You had a ship's plot behind a room. Navigator was on one side, and the ship's plot was on the other side. But somebody would stand out here, and you'd see the position of all ships around you, friend or foe, on this piece of glass here. And they were like sticky things, or however they stuck to the thing there. It's not electronic board, but that's how you knew where all the other ship positions were while they were plotting it in the back room with radar and other things.
it just
But
sounds,
yeah,
Chris, like it's so tightly choreographed. Everything has to be done when it needs to be done, by whom it needs to be done by, or I mean,
right.
the right person has to be doing his job at the right time every day, all the time.
Right, and I watch movies like Caine Mutiny, and that where they will show you, they will dramatize the actions of a captain or a helmsman or the watch officers, and that do these things here, and they're pretty accurate, except for the drama and stuff like
Right.
that, of course, in the story. But it's very accurate. Now, imagine now though, there you see the plot board there.
Yep.
You see, and you see that other table on the other side there. That's the navigator's table, and you can see those portholes. You can see one closed there and a slit through there.
And the
Um,
navigator in the Navy is called a quartermaster, correct?
the quartermaster is actually the guy on the wheel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's actually the guy who's steering the ship, and he has to certainly know how to read a compass and be up to interpreting all the buoys, everything he's looking out there. But there'll usually be either a senior, a master chief, or certainly an officer who's the officer of the deck, or rather, officer of oh, I forget what it's called, officer of the watch, whatever. He's calling the shots up there. He's supposed to be giving orders on navigation. But you should know what you're doing. Yes.
Chad
Uh,
Riddle says that this thing is called the engine order telegraph
there you go. Telegraph. That's it. I
because it
couldn't think of it.
telegraphs the order. It doesn't
Right.
actually execute the order. Okay.
No, that telegraph. I couldn't think of the phraseology, but that is correct. Um, yeah, and what I was looking at was a darker room, which is the other side of this wall,
Okay.
and that's where you would find the captain.
Okay.
Not everything else now is crammed with electronics and things like that. But the basic principles the color scheme. We were talking about the color scheme. These color schemes, maybe some things are a little more powder blue, some of them are this green, some of them are lighter gray, but the grays, these mute colors, these colors are still standard. Okay, here you go. See the captain's chair?
Yep,
Okay, that's where the captain
right
would
here,
sit.
right
Yeah,
here.
he would get right there, or the officer, or the officer of the deck, or whoever was on the bridge at that time.
And
They would
that's
sit.
called the bridge. This is called the
Yes,
bridge,
this is the bridge versus the pilot,
the
versus
wheelhouse.
the wheelhouse,
And
right?
the wheelhouse is behind you, and you can see that these are the metal
Yes,
armored plates that go
yes,
over the portholes.
right.
Why is this called the bridge? Do you have any idea? Never mind.
I can't think of it unless it has to do with ancient older vessels that
Yeah, right.
where the captain was at. He was at a high point, or what looked like a balcony of some kind. But there's a compass. No, I'm sorry. That's a radar screen. That's a old radar
Old radar
device there.
screen.
Another
How neat.
compass up here. Another plotting table for
Yeah.
charts, or whatever
Oh,
you're having there. But remember, this was built in '44 to take a hit from
yeah.
Japanese battleships, etc. So that's why you have this secondary line of defense behind the armor of the wheel the uh, uh, um, that line of armor there in front of the quartermaster in the navigation there. Now, if you're coming under attack, you certainly don't want to be out here, so you sort of retreat to the back. But this is for a normal navigation.
Boy, is that neat. Scott Masters?
Yeah, I had a question for the Navy guys here. This has been awesome to listen to. I love the movie Greyhound, and I'm wondering if the way that movie shows interactions on the bridge is accurate.
I'd love to know that too. I know Glenn Flickinger is who has abandoned his post. I believe that's not permitted. Glenn has abandoned his post. Glenn, Glenn loves that movie. I want to go to Barb, but first, Justin in Dallas.
Well, I just thought I'd answer the question. Having been on several old paddle wheel steamers, the bridge was a connection between both paddle wheel uh, houses, so that the captain or whoever could walk across between the two positions easily. And it was called the bridge.
There were two paddle wheel houses on a paddle wheel ship.
Some of the steamers had a location on both sides. If you notice on something like the old Queen Mary,
yeah,
there is a at the very front there is a bridge between both sides. So depending on which side of the ship he's trying to navigate, he can walk across.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The bridge. There actually was a bridge that went between these two fixed locations.
Okay. So it actually was a bridge. Thank you very much, Justin, for that. What about Scott's question? Chris, could you answer it?
I'm
about
sorry,
Greyhound. It was about Greyhound.
Oh, no. Well, hey, that was Apple streaming, and I did not get them, and I have yet to find that movie to watch it. So I'm not sure what they were doing on the bridge.
Yeah.
This notion that the submarine was able to communicate with them, it's already been debunked. The enemy submarine. There's no way that the German submarine could tap into the internal 1MC of any ship. It's just not possible for them to have been able to do that.
That was done in the movie?
In the movie, you have the submarine taunting them over their own intercom.
What do you say to that, Glenn Flickinger?
I'd agree. It's impossible.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to defend.
Let's say somewhat over dramatized. It is an excellent movie, and it emphasizes the dangers of the war in the North Atlantic. You know, just the convoys, and this was one of the destroyers protecting the convoy. So
I asked the question.
Yeah. So let's go Bob and Barb.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Why is it not surprising to me that you are, of course, you have visited the Little Rock, you have toured it. You put an interesting question here, Bob. Your ship, the Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is not considered to have been part of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
We were not on the manifest of ships, and we got that at a reunion where the guys in comm tell you things that you didn't know. We did not know that. And yes, I was aboard the Roosevelt. And go back to the chipping hammer.
Yeah.
I was a welder. As a welder, you can't weld through paint, right? So you have to chip before you weld anything onto the ship. And the one that I had, I was a metalsmith. So I had a hammer, but the hammer end and then a wedge and somewhere? Not like that. Oh, no. Tinner's hammer. If anybody knows what that looks like.
What was it called?
A tinner's hammer.
Tinner's hammer.
Tinner's hammer, where you can actually, pound the tin, and then on the backside of that is a wedge-shaped piece. Also use that for chipping paint and chipping weld slag off your welds.
And so you were a welder in the Navy. Did you weld then after you got out of the Navy?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
And did you learn to weld in the Navy?
I learned to weld in high school.
So when
I honed it in the Navy, yes.
And I just read an article about Bob having a terrifying experience when he was a young sailor off the coast of Gibraltar doing a major repair. If anybody would like a copy of the article I just wrote, I included our email address on the chat there, ussfdr82@gmail.com.
Okay.
I had to use 82 because 42 was already taken. I used Bob's birthday, his age at that time.
Okay. So you put your email here in the chat. You say Barb.
Yes. Oh wait, I didn't send it. Yes, I did.
Because I have not seen it. Okay. So what's the story? What happened in Gibraltar?
We pulled into Livorno, or Leghorn, as the sailors will know that term, for Liberty. And we had 3 Liberty launches go over, probably 100 men per Liberty launch. And we were sitting in port, and we were sitting in a room, and the ship was listing like this back and forth. And there's a carrier, it's listing, and I'm sitting in like a computer chair, rolling back and forth across the office. We got underway. We steamed for 3 days into a storm down the west side of Italy towards Africa. And it just did tremendous amount of damage to the ship. It just wiped all the railings off and stuff like that. And on the lower port side, there's a sponson deck. Well, that's an outside deck. The JP5 line ran underneath that. And 2 of the great big chunks of 1-inch pipe covering that, like somebody took a cutting torch and took them off. Wow. I had to put them back on. So we did that. We left. We're getting ready to go home. Our med cruise is over. So we pulled into Gibraltar, anchored, and I got a job order in the morning to go make this repair. And that's what you do.
And hours later, as Bob is in the net making these repairs with these huge pieces of heavy steel,
1-inch thick pipe, 18 inches in diameter, cut in half, and use those to cover the JP5 lines.
And the fact that it was JP5, which is highly volatile fuel. Right.
So he's working away and he hears this, "Smith, are you done yet?" And he says, "No." So then the bosun's mate yells down there. He says, "No. Do you know who that was?"
Not till I came out.
So all of a sudden, a little while longer, Bob feels he's gotten zapped. They're underway, and Bob is still in the cargo net.
And a little wave hit me, and that you get zapped. So I said, "That's it. I'm done."
Yeah.
I got out there.
So then, when he crawled out of the net, the bosun's mate asked, "Do you know who that was?" And Bob says, "No." Well, that was the XO who said, "Are you done yet?"
So, and you kind of like got irritated with them and said, "No, I'm not done yet."
He didn't even know who it was. Yeah. He just was, focusing on his job. But right. Yeah. So that's the article.
But going back to the Cuban Missile Crisis, for all of us in that area and maybe on station, 13 days we watched maybe 25 years ago. And I thought, oh yeah, that was pretty serious. Well, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, Barb brought it back again. And this time I watched it, I said, we were that close.
Yeah.
going
But
to
back
work.
to Gibraltar.
Oh.
So when he got that repair job, they were underway. They went back to Livorno, and those poor sailors that were on Liberty for an extended period of time had to then lament about coming back aboard and then headed back home.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Bob, and thank you for putting your email here so that we could request copies of that article.
Sure.
I know I'd like to read it, and I'd also like to put it in our on our blog if that's possible.
Sure.
Hey, I want to let people know this magazine is printed. The bulk copies have been shipped. I have not received mine in the mail yet, but you should. Those of you who subscribe to it, you should receive it in the mail. This is our cover, Odysseus in America. The theme of this issue, our fall issue, is coming home after war. It is being sent to, and I actually wrote this down, 10,500, no. Oh, here it is. It's being sent to 11,267 mailboxes. And then we printed up another 7,300 for distribution. So if you don't get this in the mails because we don't have your address, please do let us know where you are, and we'll be happy to put it in the mail to you. And if you'd like to get more to distribute, let us know that too. We'd be happy to send them to you. So, Chris, yes.
Yeah, just one last thing before we go. By the way, Barb, I answered your message, dear.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Bob Smith and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago. I feel so fortunate, and so do other people who've served on Little Rock, that our ship is still afloat.
Yes.
That it still exists. We can still come to see it. We can walk on its decks.
Yes.
People can bring their grandchildren here and explain things to them, because that's a luxury. It's a very small percentage of the fleet that gets decommissioned here. And we were talking about great carriers like the Saratoga and the Oriskany and the FDR, who have wonderful histories. But the thing is, of course, money. I think it's Erie County and other philanthropic people are keeping the military park is a wonderful place, and it's not just Navy. There are displays for aircraft and tanks and monuments, even a wonderful monument to soldiers who have committed suicide after service. I've never seen anything like that before. So it's a wonderful park here, but it costs money. We are very, very fortunate former crew members of the Little Rock to have this wonderful luxury that our ship still exists. And maybe if we talk again in a week or so, I'll explain that romance to you.
And I also want to think about and talk with you about, I know we've talked about it already a bit, about doing a Veterans Breakfast Club trip to Buffalo and maybe a program on the Fantail or something like that. I think that would be wonderful.
I can see it happening in my head. We can accommodate, I'm sure, almost 150 people, do a program. People can come up for a tour. There's the Croker and the Sullivans as well.
Right.
Maybe you can dovetail that the next day with something at one of the Legion posts. Expand the Veterans Breakfast Club reach to Erie County, because it would be pretty spectacular. I think that's my vision of it.
I really appreciate you making the effort, Chris, to join us tonight, even though you're at this work party on this ship. I think it's so special that you were able to share this time with you, because for you, it's kind of like going home, or you're going to visit a home that you lived in. And I'm sure it brings back a lot of memories.
Yes.
How neat. All right. Oh, hey, you want to say something, Barb?
There. Yes.
Good.
Ready?
Yes.
Oh, gentleman said earlier that he had been aboard the Midway. Well,
Yes.
the Midway is the first class, then the Roosevelt, then the Coral Sea. So we visited the Midway, and I'm thinking I'm going to take Barb below to show her where I worked and everything aboard the ship.
It's intrepid.
No, the Midway when we were in San Diego.
Okay.
And it's all configured differently. I couldn't find my way around.
It's all different, right? Because it's different from when you were on it.
And it's the next one in the series.
Yes.
I'm having that trouble.
When we were honored to tour the Little Rock and the Croker, the Sullivans, our friends from Amherst, Ohio, were reenactors for 2 days. They slept aboard the ship. We ate dinner there. They were in full dress. The boys, answered questions on the tours. The women were in their beautiful suits with the skirts and it was just a fabulous experience. Yeah.
How neat.
We love reenactors.
Hey, thank you,
I'm
Barb.
having trouble finding my way around too, but they didn't change anything on the ship. I just don't remember things.
You changed. The ship didn't change. You changed.
That's right.
Right.
Chris, thank you. Barb, thank you. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks to all of you who joined us tonight. We're going to do more Navy a week from tonight for the 250th birthday of the United States Navy. Take care, everybody.